I remember in 2020, half of America, and millions more globally, were hoping that Trump would win the elections, get in the White House, and with that stop all the wars, fix America's foreign policy, and end the COVID-19 nonsense. He was the first politician to speak so openly and without holding back, both to his opponents and to his potential voters. He was a breath of fresh air in a world full of robotic career politicians who were never really in charge of their political positions. Everyone thought Trump would change everything, or, as he himself liked to say, he would drain the swamp. But then he lost. There was tons of controversy. Were the elections fair? Was the win stolen from Trump? Everything looked shady, and nothing was certain. Chaos erupted. The Capitol riot happened. People were arrested. Die-hard Trump supporters ended up behind bars, many without even fully understanding what they had done wrong. Conspiracy theories were flying everywhere, but there was nothing that could be done. I mentioned conspiracy theories because, when I look at what is currently happening with all the wars, one conspiracy that was once considered crazy and impossible can no longer be ignored: the theory that Trump is controlled opposition, directed by the same so-called deep state that controls most American and Western politicians. I can say that it has come true. Whether it was true at the time or not, the writing was on the wall even during Trump's first term. I'm sure many people noticed and tried to warn us, but a lot of us didn't want to believe it. We should have all seen it coming. The first major sign was his failure to pardon the people who bled and ended up behind bars for him. Instead, he pardoned random criminals and rappers. The second major sign was making Jerusalem the capital of Israel and transferring the US Embassy from Tel Aviv. And last but not least, the most significant, though a symbolic one, not placing his hand on the Bible while taking the oath for his second term. Another clear sign that Trump was controlled opposition was his relationship with Dr. Fauci. It was obvious that the man was corrupt and evil, yet Trump refused to remove him from his position, or perhaps he simply didn't have the power to do so. The other possible explanation is that Trump was too naive or unaware to realize what was really happening in most of these situations, and he genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. But this gives him far too much benefit of the doubt. I remember at the time, many of us just didn't want to believe that Trump was the same as everyone before him, controlled by the same shady people and organizations. So I told myself that maybe he was just playing politics, that this is simply how the system works. Sometimes, to win, you have to give up something or make sacrifices in order to gain more. But that was just me being naive. To this day, I cannot forget the interview in which Putin explained how the US government really works. Have a listen.
Общался и с одним президентом США, и с другим, и с третьим. Президенты приходят и уходят, а политика не меняется. Знаете почему? Потому что очень сильна власть бюрократии. Вот человека избрали, он приходит с одними идеями, к нему приходят люди с кейсами, хорошо одетые и в темных, как у меня, костюмах, но только не с красным галстуком, а с черным или с темно-синим. И начинают объяснять, как нужно делать. И все сразу меняется, понимаете? Это происходит от одной администрации к другой. Вот что-то изменить – это достаточно сложное дело. Это, я говорю без всякой иронии. Это не потому, что кому-то не хочется, а потому, что это сложно. Вот.
Regardless of our beliefs and naivety, our worst fears have come true. Trump's agenda in his second term has become as clear as day. This is probably the term in which the biggest political betrayal in modern history took place. Donald Trump has officially turned his back on his own people, the very people who voted for him and elevated his image despite all his controversies. I have to mention the most notable among them: Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and many more who made fools of themselves passionately defending him. These are all major internet personalities, and I would dare to say that without their support, Trump would not have won the 2024 election. Instead of sheltering them, listening to them, and fulfilling his biggest promise, which was to end all the wars and start no new ones, he did the complete opposite and abandoned everything he claimed to stand for. I refuse to believe it is a coincidence that right after Trump condemned and turned his back on all these people, they were also condemned and added to a certain government list. I'm sure you all know which one. When I say Trump did the complete opposite of what he promised, I mean he started a totally unnecessary and destructive war against a country with over 80 million people, a centuries-old civilization much older than the United States. Millions of civilians around the world are suffering, whether as a direct or indirect consequence of this war. He also helped kidnap the leader of another oil-rich country. He promised to stop the Russia-Ukraine war but failed there as well. Not only did he fail to end the war, but he continues to give significant support to Ukraine, which has helped keep the conflict raging. As a result, millions of Russians and Ukrainians, mostly Orthodox Christians, are paying the ultimate price. I would argue that he made the situation even worse than the previous administration, which says a lot about Trump, considering that the previous administration was led by Joe Biden. So instead of going down in history as one of the greatest presidents, he will probably be remembered as one of the worst. Someone once said, "You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." I guess Trump's supposed heroism died with his first term, maybe even slightly earlier. When we analyze all this, we must wonder, who are the forces behind Trump? Why is he doing this? Why is he knowingly destroying his legacy and condemning the very people who made him president in the first place? This leads to only a few possible answers: blackmail, threats, or a drastic change in Trump's mind, a fundamental shift in his beliefs, for which we have overwhelming proof. He once attacked AIPAC openly, something that no one would dare to do, but now he panders to them and gets their full support. His decisions regarding the Middle East and the US overall foreign policies are heavily influenced by them. The last possible option, as I mentioned before, is the conspiracy theory that he has always been controlled opposition and that this can no longer be hidden. I personally think that a combination of all these factors is involved because it is obvious that there has been a drastic change in Trump's behavior, along with many contradictions between what he promised and tried to do during his first term and what he is doing now. I believe one of the main reasons for this is a certain Palm Beach guy, but also his own family, particularly his daughter and son-in-law, who we all know what they stand for and who they bow to. With all this said, I rest my case, and I would really like to hear what you all have to say in the comments. I enjoy hearing different perspectives on topics like this, especially because we all have limited information, and there may be much more happening behind the scenes than we realize. I know I'm probably wrong about some things, but I strongly believe we have to ask difficult questions. That's the only way to get closer to answers, challenge perspectives, and most importantly, hold people in power accountable for their actions. If you found this video at least somewhat interesting, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next one.